There is a person you have never met. You have never seen their face, never heard their voice, never felt what they felt, and yet that person was you. For the first few years of your life, you were awake. You were learning faster than you ever will again. You loved someone completely, and you remember none of it. Think about that for a moment. The most important years of your entire development, the years that built the foundation of who you are gone. Not fuzzy, not faded, gone. Most people cannot recall a single true memory from before the age of 3. Some remember nothing before 5. You lived thousands of days, and your mind kept almost none of them. You might assume the reason is simple. A baby's brain is unfinished. Nothing is happening in there yet. But the real answer is far stranger. Because your infant brain was not empty. It was on fire. In your first years of life, your brain was forming more than 1 million new neural connections every single second. You were absorbing an entire language without a teacher. You were learning that objects still exist when they leave your sight. You were mapping faces, sounds, smells, and the rules of gravity. By any measure, you were a genius. So why did none of it stick? The phenomenon has a name. Scientists call it infantile amnesia. The term was first used by Sigmund Freud more than a century ago. Freud noticed something odd about his patients. They could describe their childhoods in vivid emotional detail, but almost no one could produce a real, specific memory from their earliest years. He believed the mind was hiding these memories on purpose, burying them beneath everything that came after. He was wrong about the reason, but he was right that something profound was missing. For a long time, people assumed babies simply do not form memories. That turned out to be false. Give a 9-month-old a sequence of actions to copy, and they can repeat it days later. They remember. Show a toddler a toy hidden in a room, and weeks on, they can find it. They remember. The machinery of memory is clearly running. The question is not whether babies remember. The question is why those memories disappear. To understand what is happening, you have to understand the difference between 2 kinds of memory. One kind is knowing how to walk, how to grip, how to recognize your mother's face across a crowded room. This kind of memory is deep, wordless, and it stays with you for life. You do not remember learning to walk, but your body never forgot how. The other kind of memory is different. It is knowing that you went to the beach, that it was your birthday, that something specific happened to you at a specific time, in a specific place. Psychologists call this autobiographical memory. It is the story of your life, told from the inside. And this is the kind of memory that vanishes. Here is the part that will unsettle you. The reason it vanishes may be the same reason your brain was so powerful to begin with. Deep inside your brain sits a small, curved structure called the hippocampus. It is your memory factory. It is the part of you that takes a fleeting moment and files it away as something you can revisit later. Without it, new experiences slip through you like water. And in a baby, the hippocampus is not finished. It is still under construction. It is still growing new cells at a furious rate. This is where the story takes a turn no one expected. 2 neuroscientists, Paul Frankland and Josselyn, working in Toronto, asked a haunting question. What if the very growth of the infant brain is what erases its memories? They studied young mice whose brains, like ours, are flooded with new neurons in early life. This explosive growth of new brain cells has a name: neurogenesis. And here was their idea. Every time a new neuron pushes its way into the hippocampus, it rewires the existing circuits. It disrupts the delicate pattern that a memory was stored in. The new cell makes room for future learning by quietly overwriting the past. To test it, they did something remarkable. They slowed down neurogenesis in some young mice, and they sped it up in others. The results were exactly what the theory predicted. The mice with faster brain growth forgot faster. The mice with slower growth remembered longer. The forgetting was not a failure of the brain. It was a feature. Your infant memories may have been sacrificed to build the very machine that lets you remember anything at all. Sit with that. The reason you cannot remember being a baby might be that your brain was too busy becoming a brain. But growth is only part of the answer. There is something else you were missing in those early years, something so obvious that most people never think of it. You did not have words. Consider what a memory actually is. When you recall your last holiday, you do not replay raw sensation. You tell yourself a story. You say, "We drove for hours, then the sea appeared, and I felt free." Language is the thread that stitches a memory together and pins it in time. It gives an experience, a shape you can hold on to and return to later. A baby has no thread. An infant experiences the world as pure sensation, unnamed and unsorted. There is warmth. There is a face. There is a sound that means comfort. But there are no words to bind these fragments into an event with a beginning, middle, and end. The psychologist Catherine Nelson argued that autobiographical memory cannot fully begin until a child can share memories through language, usually with a parent. It is in the act of talking about the past, she found, that children learn to store the past. Memory, in other words, is partly something we are taught to do. This is why your earliest surviving memory probably appears right around the time your language did. The researcher, Carol Peterson, has spent years studying exactly when childhood memories begin. By interviewing thousands of children and adults, she mapped the boundary. On average, our first accessible memories cluster around 3.5 years old, and she found something stranger still. Children can often report memories from age 2 or younger, but as they grow, those early memories fade away and are replaced by later ones. The boundary of forgetting is not fixed. It moves. Your childhood memories were quietly slipping away even while you were still a child, and you never noticed them go. There is one more piece to this puzzle, and it may be the deepest of all. To remember an event as something that happened to you, you first need a you. You need a stable sense of self, a continuous character at the center of the story. And that sense of self is not something you are born with. It is something you build. For the first year or more of life, you did not know where you ended and the world began. Psychologists test this with a mirror and a small dot of rouge placed secretly on a child's nose. A very young child sees the mark in the mirror and reaches toward the glass. They do not understand that the reflection is them. Only around 18 months to 2 years do children touch their own nose instead. That is the moment the self clicks into place. And it is no accident that our earliest memories begin to appear only after that moment arrives. You cannot star in the story of your life until you know that you are the main character. So weave these threads together, and the mystery dissolves into something almost beautiful. You do not remember being a baby because, in the way you mean it now, that baby had not yet been fully assembled. The memory factory was still being built. The language that anchors memory had not arrived. The self that memories belong to did not yet exist. Patricia Bauer, who has spent her career studying how memory develops in children, describes early memory as fragile, like a structure being built while the ground beneath it is still shifting. The wonder is not that so much was lost. The wonder is that anything survived at all. And here is the twist that should stay with you. Just because you cannot recall those years does not mean they left you. Those forgotten days are not deleted. They are dissolved into you. The security you felt or did not feel, the face that returned every time you cried, the sound of a particular voice, the safety of being held. You cannot summon these as memories, but they became the quiet foundation of how you love, how you trust, how you move through the world. You are, in a very real sense, a story you cannot read, written in a language you have forgotten. Think of the people who raised you in those years. They remember. They remember your first word, the weight of you asleep, 1,000 small mornings that you will never access. They are the keepers of a version of you that you will never meet. In a strange way, your earliest self lives on only in someone else's mind. There is something humbling in this. We build our identities on memory. We say, I am the sum of what I remember. But the truth is that the foundation of you was laid in a time you can never revisit, by a self you can never recall, and it holds you up anyway. You are standing on ground you cannot see. So the next time you strain to reach back, to find the earliest edge of your life and grasp at what came before, remember what you are actually doing. You are looking for a person who was awake and learning and loved completely and who remembers none of it. You have never met them. You have never seen their face. And yet that person was you.